Okay, now we have audio. I think. Do we have audio now? I have nothing yet. Okay, it tells me that I have audio, so if I do, let me know. If I don't, let me know that too. I'm not exactly sure why I have no audio. Oh my goodness. Okay, can you hear me now? Got audio. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Okay, let's start this over again. I'm going to show you how to play a brain game with yourself. Now, this is the largest plate that I have in my cupboard. And we'll set it right there. Now, if I set this little tiny tomato in the center of this plate, that looks like a waste of time. If I take that same tomato and I put it on a smaller plate, it's still a waste of time, but not nearly as big a waste of time. It's filling a lot more of the plate. These are games that we can play with our brain. Now, watch what happens when I set it on a teeny tiny plate. Now, if you had 3 of those, that would look like a snack. If you had 10 almonds on this little plate, that would seem like a reasonable snack. If you had those same 10 almonds on the giant plate, not so much. So, is this giant plate a good thing to be dishing up your meal on? Well, I guess it depends on the person and the meal, but for me, not so much. So we are just going to set this one down here because we're not going to be needing it, and we're going to set this little teeny one out of the way. Now we're going to do an omelet this morning, and this is going to be absolutely delicious. It is not going to be a boring omelet because we're going to dress it up. Now, if you don't like garlic, leave the garlic out. If you don't like rosemary, leave the rosemary out. Now, the first thing that we're going to do, and I want to show you, now, these are some friends at a market that I go to. This is Double J Ranch. They have grass-fed, grass-finished beef and free-range chickens and pork. And so from them, I bought some bacon. And look at these bacon ends. Now, I did trim some of the fat off of here, but this is 1 ounce of bacon, and we are going to get this bacon into a frying pan. We're going to get my mouse out of the way here. I don't need a greasy mouse. Now, we're just going to cut this up in tiny little cubes. Well, tiny-ish little cubes. Watch your fingers. And I'm cutting this so that we're getting some ribs of meat and fat and all kinds of wonderfulness. Now, they make this bacon on their ranch, and I was so excited to get it. And I will tell you, I've already tried it. I just got this yesterday, and I have already tried it, and this bacon is delicious. It is salty and smoky and just absolutely wonderful. Now, 1 ounce, 30 grams. That is all you need. Now we're going to put this on 4, and we're going to let this bacon start cooking, and we're going to keep an eye on it because we don't want it to cook too far. Now, do you like your bacon crispy? Because me, not so much. I like my bacon soft. Always have. I know people who like it crispy. I am not one of those people. So you can cook for your audience. Okay, now this needs to be in here. Now, if this were chicken, I would get rid of this cutting board, but it's not chicken, so I'm not going to. Okay, now the next thing we are going to do, now that we've got that beautiful little piece of bacon cooking, you can double or triple this recipe, depends on who you're cooking for. Okay, now this is some organic garlic. Now, I just need 1 clove of this garlic, if I can get it out of here. Now, the bacon I got yesterday at the market and the garlic I got from the organic section in a grocery store. Now, I'm just going to set this aside because I'm not going to be using that right now. Okay, now we have 1 clove of garlic. Easiest way to peel a clove of garlic, give it a smash, and then the skin comes right off. There you go. Now, I'm not going to worry about taking the root end off of this because what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to rub it on the inside of the bowl. I just want a little bit of that garlic flavor to get in the eggs, and if there's a little piece of the garlic, stay in there. For me, that's fine. For someone else, it might be a little too intense. And I'm going to set this little clove of garlic aside because I'm going to be doing something later for supper that I will finish using it in. Okay, now we have a little bit of garlic flavor in here. We're going to add a tablespoon of cream. Now watch, when you're buying cream at the grocery store, watch. This is 35% milk fat. You can get up to 38%. You can buy organic cream. You can get 33%. Please don't buy half and half. When you're buying whipping cream, you want the milk fat to be as high as possible because that makes the lactose, which is milk sugar, and that's not something we want, makes the lactose as low as possible so there's hardly any, if any at all, carbs in your cream. Now, we need you know, one day, I am going to be so ready and you guys are going to be so shocked. Okay, now this is a 3-egg omelet. Not hungry enough to eat a 3-egg omelet? That's fine. Share it with a friend. Now you want to make sure that you are cracking the omelet, or the eggs for your omelet, into a separate bowl. Two things are true when you do that. First of all, if you get a shell in it, it is easier to see and much easier to pick out if you have only one egg. Now we're just going to give this bacon a little bit of a stir. Oh, look at that. It is rendering some fat out of there. Now you could use olive oil or avocado oil, or you could use whatever kind of oil you want. Me, I'm using bacon fat because that is my favorite, especially with an omelet. Okay, now that one is good, and in we go. And one more egg. Now the other day, I don't know what it was I was making, but I was in a hurry, and in a hurry is never a good thing with me because I tend to skip a step, and I needed 6 or 7 or 8 eggs, whatever. Oh, and look at that. Now, even though I cracked this in a separate bowl, somehow I missed that little piece of shell. So that's important to get out of there. Not something that you want to be crunching down on. Certainly not something you want your guests to be crunching down on. Now look at this, is just rendering out some beautiful fat, and we're going to let this keep going for a little bit. Now we're going to set this aside. Now I want to show you, I made a trip out to my garden this morning, and look at what I came in with. I have rosemary, and you know, we're just going to take a little piece of this rosemary branch before we go any further. Doesn't need to be a big piece, just a little piece. We're going to throw it in the frying pan and just let that flavor that bacon and that oil. So we're going to have a little bit of rosemary flavor in our omelet. So you don't like rosemary? That's okay, you can leave that out. Now the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to take some chives. Now these, I love having chives in my garden. Chives don't have as many carbs in it as onions do. And I'm just cutting these. So if you don't have chives in your garden, I highly recommend you plant some. They don't take any room to speak of. Now we need about a tablespoon of chives. Now you want more? Do more. This is your omelet. You want less? Do less. Do remember though that when you're doing this, chives do have a little bit in it for carbs. Now, you want to flip that rosemary. That is just flavoring this bacon fat so beautifully. Okay, now we are going to just turn that off for a minute. Now the heat of that pan is going to continue. Oh, you should smell the rosemary in my kitchen. Oh my goodness. You know, sometimes it does not take very much to make me happy. So I am so glad that you guys are here today because this is going to be a delicious omelet. And I hope that you will take some time and make this for yourself or somebody that you love, or yourself and somebody you love. Okay, now, if you don't like chives, you can use another herb that you do like. Now we are going to take that and just drop it into our eggs. And to that we are going to add just a wee bit of salt, just a pinch. And whoops, we are going to whip this up. Oh, can you guys see how beautiful this is? Honestly. Now look at what we have done to this rosemary. It is just so beautiful. Now let's see if we can get it to focus on the rosemary here. Can we get it to focus on the rosemary? Maybe not. I don't know. Okay, well, we're going to do it this way. Look at that. It is just beautiful, and it is dripping with delicious bacon fat, which I'm going to just knock off there, and we're going to set this aside. Okay, now we are going to whip up our 3 eggs. Oh, and we are also going to take our bacon out of here because we want that for our filling. So we're going to just scoop that out. Now, if there's a little bit of bacon fat come out with the bacon, not a big deal. It just means that we're going to have our filling even more lovely and creamy. Now, I'm not mixing this bacon in with the eggs because I want this very specifically to be part of my filling. So I'm just getting these little crumbs out of here because I don't want them to get any crispier. Now we have a little bit of oil in our pan. That's going to be just enough for our omelet. Use a non-stick pan if you have one for an omelet. It just makes things so much easier. And so we're going to set the bacon aside. And we're going to get this beat up. Oh, there, I'm wearing a... Is an egg bath good for your skin? I don't know. They say a milk bath is. I'm not sure about cream and egg. Okay, now we're going to turn this pan on 4. And we're going to let it heat up just a wee bit. This is super easy. Now I have 3, count them, 3 tomatoes that I got out of my garden. This one has a little bit of a spot on it. I don't know if you can see it. We're just going to trim that off. Oops. Put the rest of that in there. And we're going to start making, while we're waiting for that pan to heat up. See, this I am going to say that was from a hailstone. So thank you, Mother Nature, for beating up my garden. But we win because we still get the tomatoes. Now I'm going to cut. No, this one got a little spot too. Oh. There we go. I am not adding very much tomato to this. I love tomato in an omelet. I don't like what tomatoes do to me. So, you know, when you know that you are sensitive to nightshade vegetables, that doesn't mean that you can never have them. That knife, you could ride to town on that thing. It is so dull. I need to sharpen it. This one is much better. Now I'm leaving the little stem spot out of there. And I'm just going to cut these. This one I'm going to just cut the stem out. Make sure you don't cut yourself. I have cut myself so many times in the kitchen, and it is worth it to be able to do what I love, but I don't enjoy it. Okay, now we're going to cut this up. This is, the frying pan is getting hot. It was still fairly hot from cooking our bacon. And we are going to just pour this in the frying pan. Oh, whoops, almost. Make sure we get all of that beautiful chive out of there. And look at it just floating to the top, and it's in that bacon grease that is flavored with the rosemary, and our egg was in the bowl that was flavored with a little bit of fresh organic garlic. So we have a pretty amazing omelet going on here. Okay, now we're just going to set this over here, and we're just going to mix this around a little bit. Now we're going to do a French omelet today. So it's getting mixed around just enough that we're getting this raw egg on the bottom, so it isn't going to take quite so long to cook. And it is going to be nice and creamy. Now if you want to add melted butter instead of cream, you don't have cream I don't know why you don't have cream in your house. I don't ever not have cream in my house. Well, except for this morning when I found out that the last little bit of cream in my carton had gone sour. So I had to make a mad dash to the grocery store and buy a new carton of cream because I just don't do life without cream. Okay, now look at what we've got going on here. It doesn't matter that we've got little ridges in here. That's just going to hold our filling better. Now, in this filling, the first thing we're going to do is 45 grams of cream cheese. And you just want to cube it. It's a little bit easier to cube if you've got it in the freezer. I've had mine sitting out for a little while. So, 45 grams of cream cheese. I am going to break this up because it is easier. Now, if you don't want this much cream cheese, you don't have to have this much cream cheese. This is entirely up to you. Keep it a little more in the middle because we're going to do a French omelet, so everything is going to be all folded in and beautiful. And we're going to turn this down to 2. Put the last little bit in here so the cream cheese and the chives and the tomato is going in here. And then our last little bit of magic. Now, I am not going to use the seeds out of the tomato because they don't need to be in there, and that's just that's another brain game that I play with me. It's a little less tomato in there, so that makes it a good thing. Now, I am just going to rough cut some fresh basil out of my garden. This is the last thing that I'm putting in because I want this basil wilted. I don't want it cooked to death. And then, well, almost the last thing. There. So we did not take the time to chiffonade this today. We're going to add our bacon down the center. And that last little bit of bacon grease. And then we're going to add our basil. Look at how fast this comes together. Breakfast or brunch does not need to be a great big huge deal that takes you hours and hours to prepare. It took longer to go out to my garden and pick all of this than it did to actually make the omelet. And now we are just going to fold this in. And then, now this is Sharon not using a big enough pan. Oh, okay, well, it is not a beautiful French omelet, but it is a French omelet nonetheless. And because we are playing brain games with ourselves, turn the burner off. Because we're playing brain games with ourselves, we are just going to slide that onto a small plate. And you want to decorate this a little bit? You can add just a few raspberries on the side. Let's flip this over one more time. Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah, I will take that all day, every day. And we can put that little piece of fried rosemary on top, or you can put fresh if you like, whatever does it for you. And just a few little raspberries on the side to give somebody a bit of a sweet bite if that's what you're wanting. And you have an omelet that is going to be absolutely packed with flavor. Add a little more salt, add a little more pepper, add some cayenne. You can top it with salsa if you like. I'm not sure why you would, but you can. Now remember, you've got all of the beautiful flavors from these fresh herbs in here. If you top it with salsa, you're going to lose that because it's an intense flavor in itself. So if you want a little bit on there, you do you. And remember, there are games that you can play with yourself so that you think you're getting more food than you are. So if that's an issue, you look at your plate and think there's no possible way that can be enough, I'm going to be hungry, you want to remember this. So let's just take a taste and see if we've done this well enough. Okay, let's cut this in the middle so that we can see all of these amazing, beautiful fillings that we've put in here. If you don't have stuff growing in your garden, look at that. We've got bacon and tomatoes and herbs. And I am going to make you guys so jealous right now. That is amazing. The bacon is salty and smoky, and the cream cheese just makes this so incredible. Do I need to have raspberries? Now, I want to tell you, I went out and picked these raspberries this morning. Now, Del and I had a deal because I kicked up a stink about having raspberries in our yard for a lot of years. And so he said, look, I want raspberries, but you won't have to pick them. And I said, okay, just remember. And so this morning he said, there are a ton of raspberries out there that are going to be ready. Can you pick them? And I said, you know, I remember when, but I got to tell you, these raspberries are so good. And I know he's listening, and I know I'm going to pay for this statement, but I am not sorry that we have raspberries in our yard. And looking at the price of raspberries in the grocery store and at farmers markets makes me even more happy. Raspberries, if you're only having a few, they are keto. So you can enjoy some raspberries with an amazing omelet, or just mash some on a piece of keto bread. Don't have too many. Make sure you're keeping track of your carbs. 4 raspberries. Should we see what 4 raspberries weigh? Let's check this out. I will grab the scale. Now this is something that is always handy. Do you have a kitchen scale in your world? Take that out. 4 raspberries, which is what I had on the plate, about 7 grams. So we want 10 grams. There you go. 2, 4, 6 raspberries, 10 grams of raspberries. There isn't going to be enough carbs in there to really matter. Make sure you're watching what fruit you're using. Now, something that I have coming ready in my yard is some Evans sour cherries. Even though they're sour, and they really are very tart, it doesn't mean that they're carb free. It also doesn't mean that you can't use them. You can, but very, very sparingly. Fortunately, the flavor is very intense. So we'll be doing something with some sour cherries a little bit later. Maybe next week they'll be ready. So I'm going to say goodbye to all of you, and I am going to enjoy this amazing omelet. Let me get this here where you can, there we go. I am going to go and enjoy this amazing omelet with all of these beautiful fillings in it. You don't have to chop a whole clove of garlic and put it in. Just rub the inside of the bowl. Just take the rosemary and throw it in the pan with the bacon. You get just a little bit of the flavor, enough to really liven up that omelet, make it something special, and people are going to be amazed at your brilliance when you do stuff like this with whatever herbs you have available. You have sage, throw some sage in the bacon fat or the butter that you're putting in the pan. You've got sage butter or sage bacon fat, and it will be amazing. Play with your herbs. If you can't get them out of your own garden, grab some at the grocery store. Share with a friend so that you're not wasting them, or leave them out to dry so that you can use them for later. Or if you're looking for dried herbs, TSL Organics, and watch for this Double J. Honestly, guys, this bacon is some of the best bacon that I've had. So Double J is the rancher that you want to be watching for at your local farmers market in central Alberta. I know for a fact you can find them every Saturday morning from 9:30 to 12:30 at the Rimbey Farmers Market, which is also where you'll find me. So please go and do your very best to live your best version of this shining life. Reach out to someone that you love that needs to hear from you, because I'll bet that you need to hear from them just as bad. So go and make an omelet and do keto the way you do keto, and be gentle with yourself and the people around you. Bye for now. I will see you on Friday.